Today, we're discussing networking, the how-tos of it, and also the why. Starting off with what is networking, networking can sometimes be an intimidating title. People think of networking, they think of a formal situation, much as the picture here indicates, but networking doesn't have to be a formal professional situation. We'll talk about that and tips for those types of events, but networking is also what you're doing organically throughout your academic career, what you're doing out in the community. It's making connections with people and using those connections later on when you're looking for opportunities or when you're discussing what you're interested in doing post-graduation, etc. So thinking about the people that are with you next to your classes, thinking about your professors, the staff that you meet, of course, family, friends that you have outside of college, all of those people are a part of your network. And by actively networking and by seeking out strangers who are working in professional areas you might be interested in, you're able to expand that network and also define it. Thinking of that type of networking where we're reaching out to people that we're less familiar with, or when we're purposely networking to try to identify an industry that we want to learn more about, some of the benefits include being able to ask questions and gain information about the field, or might be a sector of law that you're interested in. Of course, we're expanding our network. We're also obtaining professional knowledge, and we're helping develop our professional image. The first couple of times that we network or reaching out to strangers, we're probably going to make some flubs or social faux pas because we don't know the rules of networking yet, and that's a natural part of the process. However, as time goes on, we learn how other people interact, we see them in their work environments, and we're able to develop a better image ourselves. This also breaks the ice for future interactions or conversations, and that's why it's really best to network early on in your academic career and early on in your professional career, because you may not need connections right now. Maybe you're not looking for internships, or maybe you already have landed one, but you don't want to start networking when you need something. You want to network long before you need something so that you've broken the ice and so that you can let someone know who you already have an established relationship. Hey, thank you again for meeting me for coffee last fall. Currently, I'm searching for internships in the legal arena. I know that you don't have any opportunities where you work, but I was curious if you know of places I could reach out to. Of course, networking may also teach us about different opportunities in different organizations, and it's a two-way street. Right now, when we first make the relationship, it may seem like we're really relying on the person we're reaching out to, but in the future, certainly they could reach out to us. Maybe they're trying to get connected with Creighton, or maybe they would like to speak to an organization that you're a part of, and then going forward, when you're in graduate school and beyond, that becomes even more of a two-way street because your organization might help them out. So remember that you might be doing the work today and feel like you're the one owing them a favor, but in the future, they might owe you a favor. Where to seek a network, and this comes back to the idea that networking means a lot of different things. So of course we start with our family and friends because those are the relationships we already have established, but also think about faculty, staff, and classmates that you may not have really interacted with a whole lot, but you can see an easier opportunity to develop a relationship with someone in one of those sectors. So for example, thinking of staff, if you haven't met with me yet, I work in the Career Center and I would be a good asset to your network. Let me know what type of opportunities you're looking for. And then when I see internships or jobs in your area, I can connect you with them. I've certainly helped students, and I can even think of alumni who are looking for legal positions where they let me know that they're looking, and I found a job opportunity and helped connect someone to a permanent position. So remember to start easy. If you know of someone, faculty or otherwise, that you could connect with, start there. But also attend conferences, programs, and events. So this would be more of that formal networking that we sometimes think of, where we're really going to be engaging with a lot of professionals from a lot of different areas. Oftentimes departments will have funding for students to go to conferences. So talk to faculty, see if there are professional development opportunities within your area that you could attend either for free or for cheap. But also there will be programs that your department may put on. They may be putting on events. So usually there are opportunities for you to get involved and network not only with classmates, but then also with people from the community potentially, or from the law school, or just from different professions that you might be interested in. Also nice to get acquainted with professional organizations. This could be something like the National Bar Association or the American Association of Lawyers. Oftentimes, professional organizations will have discounted memberships for students, and then they'll let you know about different conferences and programs going on, and they may have events going on in the Omaha area, or maybe in a hometown, your hometown. So becoming acquainted with at least a few professional organizations is a good way to build those networks early. Of course, there are informational interviews, and I'll talk a little bit later one of the ways that you can reach out to someone for an informational interview. But if you're not familiar with what that is, that's when you reach out to a potential stranger, professional that you're interested in knowing more about, and asking for 15 to 20 minutes to talk with them about what their job entails, what they like about their position, what the challenges are. It's really, you're just trying to get information from them. This would be very clear in reaching out to someone that you're not looking for opportunities, you're not seeking jobs, you're not seeking internships, you're just looking to learn more about them. But that's a great way to add a professional to your network. And then, of course, there's digital networking. LinkedIn is a big one. If you don't already have a LinkedIn account, I would encourage you to start one. And I would also, if you have a LinkedIn account, check out linkedin.com/alumni. This is a tool that allows you to see the 32,000 or so Creighton alumni that are on LinkedIn, see what they've studied, where they're working, where they're working as far as organization, and then where they're working as far as geographic location. All that information is on there, and it's a great way to reach out and identify who you might want to either perform an informational interview with, or who you want to identify as someone you'd like in your network. And of course, Twitter and Facebook are also opportunities to digitally network. If we're using this digitally network, if we're connecting with professionals, we need to make sure that our content on those sites is also professional. Thinking about those networking events, whether it's a conference, whether it's an event that's specific for networking, whether it's something put on by your department, be prepared. Know the audience who's going to be there. Is it only going to be classmates? So is it going to be people your age, or are we talking about professionals from the community? Are these going to be young professionals, older professionals, a mix, etc.? I'm going to have you practice an elevator speech, which I'll talk a little bit more in a moment, but in essence, elevator speech is about 30 seconds, content about who you are, your background, and then what you're looking to do in the future. And then also brainstorm possible questions that you'd be interested in asking attendees based on knowing who the audience is. And then when you're actually meeting with people, try to find commonalities. If it's a Creighton event, great, we have probably Creighton in mind. Or maybe it's the fact that we're both interested in going to law school, or that we're both interested in law in general. If they're in a particular sector of law that you would like to pursue, fantastic. But it could even be that we both like sports, that we maybe both came from the same home state, etc., etc. But finding commonalities is a great way to make that relationship start a little more smoothly. Listen to the person, use their name. This certainly is something that I struggle with because I'm not great at remembering names. I'm better at remembering faces. If you're like me and remembering names is a little more difficult for you, I would encourage you to think of something that will help you remember that name. So if it's something like John, perhaps thinking of a famous person to connect that to, or thinking of an animal that starts with J. Different things work for different people, but also using their name then in that conversation before you forget it will also help you remember it. So thank you, John. I appreciate you bringing that up. We don't want to get creepy because that can probably quickly become weird, but just occasionally bring up their name so that you also remember it. Vary who you talk to. This can be difficult if we're a little bit more introverted, because our tendency is, if we're able to make one successful conversation, is just keep in that conversation. But if you're going to a true blue networking event where there's a lot of different professionals around, do force yourself to try talking to someone new. Be friendly, introduce someone else. This will make you look really professional if you're not only able to connect with someone, but introduce a friend to someone else. So maybe you're trying to vary who you talk to, but the person you're talking to currently is not really wanting to leave the conversation. Maybe you can introduce them to someone else, and now you have a 3-person conversation, and you're able to expand your network further. And then the last piece with networking events is follow-up, and that's a big one. Remember who you talked to, who made an impact on you. Hopefully you maybe exchange business cards, or you're able to know who was leading the event and contact them so they can get you connected for a follow-up email or a follow-up card. And in that follow-up, reference something personal from your conversation so that the person you send a thank you to remembers who you are, but then also feels like you didn't send a generic thank you, but it was specific to your conversation. Some networking do's: prepare in advance and be confident. And preparing in advance would include looking up the audience and preparing those questions. Use professional language, and by this I mean try to avoid sounding ultra casual. So thinking of some of those words, phrases that make us sound more like we're talking to friends, less like we're talking to a professional. Some of the words I would try to avoid using would be kind ofs, you knows, love, hate. Those are typically thrown around more in casual conversation. But of course, we'd also want to avoid profanities. We'd also want to avoid outbursts of laughter. And it's okay to laugh, but you can probably tell the difference between a laugh that's more comfortable around friends and a laugh that's more comfortable around professionals. We want to be aware of our body language, especially if we're nervous, and our tendency is to really close up on ourselves and to cross our arms around our chest and try to make ourselves as small as possible. Try to open yourself up more and indicate by your body language that you're open to having the conversation. Talked about this a little bit, but start with someone you know, but be willing to step out of your comfort zone and go beyond your industry as well. If you're really interested in compliance or just interested in law, but you're talking to someone who's maybe in financial analysis and seemingly unrelated to law, don't discount them. They could still be a great person to add to your network. And then know your goal, interaction and time frame. So if you know that the event lasts 50 minutes and it's 20 minutes in, you've only talked to one person, it's a pretty good sign. Oh, I wanted to talk to, let's say, 5 people, so I really need to step it up today. We want to be friendly and useful and genuine. If we don't feel comfortable with our actions, if we're being inauthentic, it's probably going to come across to the person we're networking with. We want to ask open-ended questions so that the conversation has more of a place to go and feels more organic. If we're asking a lot of closed-ended questions like, what's your favorite color? Sometimes it can be hard to expand on that, and then you're having to do extra work because you're now having to have double the conversation. Dress professionally, and this would come in part with the be prepared. So if you know what the audience is, if you know what the type of event it is, whether you're supposed to dress professionally or not, that's going to help you. But I would always argue that it's better to dress more professionally than less. So even if you know it's a casual event, I would go business casual, nice jeans and a nice top, as opposed to cargo shorts and kind of an older top. Bring business cards. This isn't necessarily applicable to everyone. Certainly, if you have business cards, I would bring them or have some method where they can contact you. I certainly have seen students who are ambitious, know that they're going to networking events, and have business cards that state that they are a student at whatever university and have their contact information. You would look amazing if you provided something like this, and the copy or the printing center on Creighton's campus will print business cards for students. So keep that in mind. Like I said before, follow up with a thank you note, and then of course enjoy the experience and try not to think of it as a chore, because ultimately it's going to help you in your career. So if you're able to enjoy it, it's going to make it a lot easier on you. Some networking don'ts: don't expect immediacy, especially if you are in the situation where you're looking for internships or looking for jobs. Networking doesn't typically lead to immediate results. Of course, there are the stories where that has happened, but that's going to be not the norm. So don't expect something immediate. We're trying to create a relationship for longer term use. We don't want to overdo the communication, and along with this, we wouldn't want to underdo the communication, but typically overdo is where students will fall into. And by this, I mean that they follow up immediately with an email, which is good. We do ask you to do that, but then on top of following up immediately, if they haven't heard back the next day, following up again, emailing them the next week, and then maybe a few days after that. So overdo the communication would be overwhelm the person with emails. And if ever you have a question about whether something is too much, you have Julie Olson, who is a pre-law advisor in the Creighton's Edge pre-professional group, and she can help answer questions. And then I'm certainly able to answer those questions as well. So you also have the Creighton Edge's Career Center here to help you. Don't apologize. This is probably more of a Midwestern thing. Don't apologize for asking for someone's contact information, or apologize for talking too much, or whatever it may be. We can sometimes apologize even when we don't really mean to apologize. We want to try to avoid that. We don't want to ask for too many favors or take advantage of the networker. This is thinking not necessarily in the day that we start networking, but longer term. You kind of have to parcel out who we're asking favors for. So if you're asking to shadow someone, and then you've asked them whether someone else can shadow, and then you're asking whether they know of any opportunities, and this is all within a few months, it's going to feel like you're mooching off of them. It's not going to come across well for a long-term relationship. We don't want to ask for a job. That's a really easy way to shut down a relationship, where, nope, I don't have a job. Guess our relationship's over. So instead of asking for a job, letting them know potentially when you're seeking opportunities, and asking them if they've heard of anything open in general, not necessarily at their organization, but in the sphere. But we never want to ask directly for a job. And then don't only network when you need it. I've talked about this a little bit already, but this is a lifelong process. Start early. Continue to ping the people that you do add to your network. So don't make a connection at one event and then don't contact them for 3 years and then expect that relationship to still be there. right? Every couple months, even if it's once a semester, remind that person who you are, say hi, how are you doing, or try to connect, make those relationships last. Then I'm thinking of that elevator pitch. Here it's called an introductory statement. It's called different things in different places, but regardless of what you name it, this is the way that we phrase our intro statement to people that we're networking with. Before you start writing the personal statement, I would probably write it down first. Not that we're going to practice it word for word, but it'll help us know where we're going. So before I would write the goal or write the statement, I would want to know what my goal is. Is my goal to communicate that I'm interested in a particular type of law? Is my goal just to expand my network? Is my goal to help the person I'm talking to visualize me in a particular role, et cetera, et cetera? But then what we do want to do, knowing that that's our goal, we do want to explain who we are and what we do. So potentially this could be, I am a business student at Creighton University. I'm currently a junior and I'm majoring in economics. And I'm currently an HR intern at Hewitt. And then incorporate something unique about you. This could be an interest that you have, or this could be something that you plan to do. An example of this could be, in my spare time, I like to volunteer, and I'm a committed member of the Siena Francis House. And in fact, I was able to introduce my fraternity to the Siena Francis House and establish a committed volunteering time between my organization and theirs. And then engage with a question. So after you've said that blurb about you, think of a question that you can ask them to make the conversation start more organically, because we don't necessarily want to just say a bit about us and then force the person listening to think of something to ask us. Instead, we can engage with the question, and by doing that, we can also focus the conversation. So engaging with a question, if I knew who that person was, could be, I understand that you're currently an immigration attorney. Tell me more about how you started getting engaged with legal aid in Nebraska. And then practice and watch the time. Typically, this is about a 30-second introductory statement. It doesn't have to be specifically like that, but we don't want it to be a very long statement where we're going to potentially lose their interest. I would say no more than 45 seconds, and 45 seconds can feel long. Some conversation starters to think of, depending on the situation. If you're more in a formal situation, we have some here like, what do you enjoy most about your job, working for whatever organization you work for? But we also have some informal conversation starters, and depending on the situation, that might be the best fit. Have you been watching the basketball games recently? Or maybe you could talk to them about a current event that's going on. And of course, one conversation could have both formal and informal components to it, because that's a natural flow of the way conversations start. But these are the types of things you can also prepare. Think of some questions you might want to ask someone in advance of going up to them and meeting them. This is an example of a networking message that can be sent through LinkedIn or potentially sent through an email if you're trying to reach out to someone for the first time. So here, dear Steve, I see that you graduated from my current university, Creighton. I'm a psychology major and would be excited to hear more about your work with Omni Behavioral Health. I'll be in your area in a few weeks for vacation. If you have any time, I'd love to meet up for coffee. Thanks so much, Marilyn McCarthy. So here they're not asking for an opportunity. They're saying they just want to learn more about the organization, about their role within that. So that's a pretty easy request for someone to say yes to. Whereas if you're asking for an opportunity, they might shut you down right away, and then you don't even get to meet with them. And here we have language for requesting an informational interview. This will also be a blue line. So you can see this text outside of the presentation as well. My name is Bailey Jones, and I'm a senior studying political science at Creighton University. I will be graduating in May, and a friend of mine, Raven Ortolan, suggested I contact you to learn more about being a new professional in the field. Would you be available for a 30-minute informational interview at the time that is convenient for you to discuss the field of law and offer any advice you have for new graduates? As a Creighton alum, I thought you would have an excellent perspective on what a current Creighton student could do to best prepare themselves. If you are open to speaking with me, I can be reached at or at phone number to set up a time that is convenient for you. Thank you for your time. So this would be language that a person you could send in an email, but also this type of language, not maybe word for word, would be what you could do if you were reaching out to someone via phone, or if you had a networking event and you were asking them in person. But in essence, you want the who you are, how you found them, and then what you want. You want to make sure the communication has all those pieces. I have seen professional communication where students are nervous about making the ask, and so they're really wishy-washy about making the ask, and you'd have to read the whole email and sometimes still guess what the ask is. Don't do that. If you're going to ask someone a question, just go up, ask it, even if it's a little bit awkward. Again, Julie Olson and then myself would be great people to run by a communication if you were curious about, is this what I should be writing for an informational interview request? We're happy to review that. But my biggest piece of advice would be, don't be afraid to make the ask. If you're going to write the email or if you're going to make the phone or in-person conversation, make the ask clear. When you're conducting an informational interview, arrive early and be aware of time, because certainly if you said 30 minutes or if you said 20 minutes, you don't want to go 40 minutes and then potentially this person's late. You want to make it look like you're a punctual person and you're a person who honors others' time. Again, we don't ask for the job outright. We've kind of talked about that quite a bit. Keep it conversational but appropriate, so we don't, even if that person we're having a meeting with is laughing or making inappropriate jokes, we're not going to let ourselves follow suit. We're still going to keep it professional, even if we can laugh, but not anything untoward. Types of questions you might ask in an informational interview include, what is your favorite aspect of your work? What are some challenges at your organization? What past courses or experience proved the most valuable for you in this job, etc. There's a lot of additional information that you can find on our Creighton Career Center website. So if you go to the networking tab, you'll find an informational interview guide that has even more details about all of these different processes and then also the questions. Some notes on professionalism: connect on LinkedIn, and then, as I mentioned, stay connected. Don't just forget about someone and come back years later and expect that relationship still to be there. Always be professional, even when rejected, because you don't know who that other person is talking to. So even if they were somewhat cool in an email and said, I can't meet with anyone at this time, you don't want to reply with something snarky, because we have no idea who's in their network, who they're sharing with, and that person might be looking at your resume someday for a potential job. So we always want to stay professional. We want to treat each communication as an application. So even if we're texting someone who we're going to be having a networking conversation with, and texting can seem like a very casual space, but we still want to avoid using emojis, slang, excessive exclamation points. I would argue that even if they are using emoticons in an email to me, I'm not going to use emoticons back, because it's going to take away degrade my credibility. And then, of course, write thank yous either via email or via snail mail after an informational interview or after a networking event to show the person that you value the connection that you made with them. And here I have some sources that I used for this presentation. If you have any questions about any of the content today, or if you'd like to go over any of this further, you can schedule an appointment with the Career Center. You can either do that through Handshake, or you can give us a call at 402-280-2722. We also have walk-in hours every Monday through Friday from 2 to 4:30 p.m. Those are typically for 10 to 15-minute questions. And you can also email me with questions at ravenortolon@creighton.edu. Thank you so much. I hope you have an excellent day.